After looking at some of the improvements to the Darwinex monthly trading challenge last time, in this episode I focus on the way the user interface has been improved and take you on a guided tour through the new features and functionality. Last time I covered some of the really great changes that have now been implemented into the DarwinIA monthly trading challenge, such as increased allocation amounts, now a maximum of 10 million euros going to the best 150 strategies each and every month. But this increase was also accompanied by a new user interface, and it's this that I'm going to take you through today. Everything relating to DarwinIA can be accessed by this option on the left-hand menu here. And then by selecting one of the 4 options across the top, we can see the current month's ranking, the ranking for all past editions, and then the next 2 are just information about what DarwinIA is and how you can participate in this monthly challenge. So I'm going to start by looking at the past editions tab. And here you can select exactly what month it is that you're interested in looking at. I'm going to look at last month, November 2021. Now, one of the improvements from the old DarwinIA is this top section here. And this shows some of the key Darwins or strategies that meet certain criteria. So for example, the winner was Darwin BAX, and you can see that in position 1 right below here. Next we have the best debutant, and this is the highest ranking Darwin that was created in the last 6 months. And last month this went to TEC. Next we have the Darwin with the best return, and if you're not familiar with DarwinIA, you might be wondering why this didn't come in first position. Well, if you watch the previous episode, I explained the criteria there, and the main 2 are what's called the D-score and then the return for the month. And you'll need to perform well at both of those in order to get into the top positions. And then finally, we see the Darwin with the best streak, which happens to be one of my Darwins, and so probably best if we just move on now and look at some of the functions and features that accompany the new DarwinIA interface. So we see the ranking down the left-hand side here, and by clicking on any of these, we can then see more detailed metrics on the right-hand side for that particular Darwin. But what we're looking at here is Darwins from all traders on the platform. If you want to take a closer look at your own Darwins, that's as simple as clicking on My Darwins here, and you'll be able to see exactly which position they ranked in using this number on the left here. If you want to search for a specific Darwin, you can easily do that from this search box here. But let's just return to the full ranking. Now, one of the differences from the previous version are these badges. So if a Darwin ranks in the top 50 Darwins by the total amount that they've managed to get as an allocation in past DarwinIA editions, then they'll have this grey badge with the $sign that you see here. If you see a Darwin with the red badge, then this shows that it's made the best position ever while it's been competing in the DarwinIA challenge. And then you'll see this purple badge here, which every Darwin that's been in the top ranking positions, so receiving a seed capital allocation, for the last 3 consecutive months. So let's take a look at one of these in a little bit more detail. So you can get an indication here of what the actual allocation was. So you'll remember there's a maximum allocation which you will receive if your account equity is over a certain threshold. But if it isn't, you still receive an allocation, but that just gets reduced. But this is the actual amount they received. Now, the thing that determines where you do rank is your rating score, which is this here. And this is a combination of the Darwin's D-score, which is this proprietary metric of historical performance, the current month's return, and the regularity score that we looked at last time. And you can see each of those 3 below here. So the D-score is 71.57. The return for the month in this particular case was 4.39%. And the regularity score was 100%. Which meant that this trader was trading with the same type of frequency that they have over previous months. So the first tab here, the rating, shows where this trader appeared exactly on this distribution of ratings. So the small blue dot that you see here shows in percentage terms going from 100% down to 0 where the trader ranked for all participating Darwins. And you can see they fit into this category here at the top end of it. And of course, that's the reason this Darwin ranked so highly in position 15. And in this particular case, we can actually see that they ranked in the top 1%. Now, let's take a look at the allocation tab. This shows us what the historical performance has been in the DarwinIA contest. So obviously we're looking at the month of November here, and so you can see this is the allocation that was secured for this month. But you can also see that in the previous 4 months, this also managed to get an allocation. Before that, there were a few months where it was out of the rankings, and then once again there's an allocation here. This trader will have built up quite a large allocation, and you can see that value here. The current allocation is almost 300,000 euros, and then there will be allocations from the past that have now expired and gone beyond that 6-month period we talked about last time, but we can also see what the total has been, which is nearly 500,000. And it's this figure here for the current allocation that means this Darwin is in the top 50. So let's now take a look at the position tab. This gives us a nice line chart showing the exact positions that this trader managed to secure. So the current month here for November is position 15, as we can see from the flyout here, which obviously corresponds with the 15th position here. But then we can see that the previous month was position 11, position 62, 16, and so on. But the best position this Darwin has ever achieved can be seen here, position number 11. Now let's take a look at the distribution tab. This is a scatter plot of the 2 main criteria that determine a trader's ranking. The D-score along the x-axis and the Darwin's return along the y-axis. And the return in this particular case is the monthly return. So we can see this particular Darwin highlighted here, and how that compares to all of the others that ranked in those top 150 places. And of course, it's a combination of a high D-score with a high return that guarantees your place at the top of that leaderboard. And that's why you can't see any dots down the bottom left-hand side here. Other Darwins would have registered a dot down here, but of course they didn't rank in the top 150, and so they don't appear here. And so really, you want to get as far across on the right, as far up as possible, and that is what is going to secure you the highest rankings. And you can see by the size of the dots here, it's those that are on the top right that are the largest, that show that they were in a high position. So this is position 1, position 2, position 3, and so on. Now, let's take a quick look at the current month's ranking. So to do that, we click on the ranking tab that you see here, and the ranking here will change throughout the month as the return that traders achieve changes, and also the D-score to a lesser extent. Now this leaderboard will update once every 4 hours, and you can see when the next update's going to occur here. Now this says 3 hours 59 minutes, so that means there's just been an update. So this is bang up to date, and we can see that Darwin UNH is currently in first position. Now, in terms of the information that's available on the right-hand side, this is almost identical to what we saw for previous months a moment ago. A few differences though are that on this column here, you see what the maximum allocation will be rather than the actual allocation that we saw on the previous months. So now is probably a good time to show you where you can find that information. So on the How to Participate tab that you see here, if you scroll all the way down, you can see the various criteria that I've talked about previously, but then at the bottom here, you get an allocation table. So for position 1, which has a maximum allocation of €500,000, as we saw before, the minimum equity that you would need in your trading account to get this full amount would be almost 14,000 euros. But if you don't have that amount in your account, you don't need to worry, you'll get allocated a proportion. So if you were to have, let's say, 7,000 in your account, then you would still receive half of this amount, 250,000. Unfortunately, as you go down the ranking here, you'll notice that the minimum equity value reduces significantly. If we go all the way down to the bottom here to the lower ranking positions, you can see that the maximum allocation for these is 25,000 euros, and you'll receive that full allocation providing your account has this amount or more in it. So it's a much smaller value. And you can see how that minimum equity changes as we go up the rankings. But as I said before, you're still going to receive an allocation if you have less in your account, but it will just be reduced proportionally. Now, if you want more information about what DarwinIA is all about, you can either watch my previous video on the subject, or you can find additional information on the What is DarwinIA tab. So hopefully you found that to be a useful update on the new version of DarwinIA and the new functions and features that are now available. Be sure to subscribe to the Darwinex channel on YouTube, and you'll find a whole host of different trading related videos and content available for you to enjoy. And so now, until next time, trade safe.